Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pradeshwara Saraswata Shri Sriman His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Chai Beauty Founder Chaja Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Dai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Namo Vishnu Vishnu Samhita Vishnu Vishnu Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 25. Titled The Glories of Devotional Service. Text number 17. Tada Purusa Atmanam Tada Purusa Atmanam Kevalam Prakrite Param Kevalam Prakrite Param Nirantaram Swayam Jyotir Nirantaram Swayam Jyotir Animanam Akanditam Animanam Akanditam Tada Purusa Atmanam Kevalam Prakrite Param Nirantaram Swayam Jyotir Animanam Akanditam Tada Purusa Atmanam Kevalam Prakrite Param Nirantaram Swayam Jyotir Animanam Akanditam Atmanam Prakrite Param Tada, then, Purusha, the individual soul, Atmanam, himself, Kevalam, pure, Prakrite Param, transcendental to mature existence, Nirantaram, non-different, Swayam Jyoti, self-effulgent, Animanam, infinitesimal, Akanditam, not fragmented. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: at that time the soul can see himself to be transcendental to mature existence, and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. Purport: in the stage of pure Krishna consciousness, in the state of pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle, non-different from the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the jiva, or the individual soul, is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sun's rays are minute particles of the brilliant constitution of the sun, so a living entity is a minute particle of the Supreme Spirit. The individual soul and the Supreme Lord are not separated as in material differentiation. The individual soul is a particle from the very beginning. One should not think that because the individual soul is a particle, it is fragmented from the whole spirit. Mayavad philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the jiva, is eternally apart. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exist. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun's rays also exist. The jiva particle is estimated in Vedic literature to be 1/10,000, the size of the upper portion of a hair. It is therefore infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, but the living entity, or the individual soul, is infinitesimal, although it is non-different in quality from the Supreme Spirit. Two words in this verse are to be particularly noted. One is nirantaram, which means non-different, or of the same quality. The individual soul is also expressed here as animanam. Animanam means infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is all-pervading, but the very small spirit is the individual soul. Akhanditam means not exactly fragmented, but constitutionally always infinitesimal. No one can separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun. But at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not as expansive as the sun itself. Similarly, the living entity, by its constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but he is infinitesimal. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshul Mritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'll read the translation again. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. So this is Lord Kapila Dev speaking to his mother, Devahuti. So at the start of this chapter, we saw Mother Devahuti coming and submitting herself at the lotus feet of Lord Kapila Dev. Just like at the start of the Bhagavad Gita, we see Arjuna. He surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Krishna, saying, Krishna, now I am your surrendered soul, now I am your disciple. I don't know what's right, I don't know what's wrong. Due to weakness of heart, I'm not able to do the right thing. Now I'm submitting myself as a disciple unto you. You please instruct me into what is it I should do. So in the same way, in a similar, very humble, submissive mood, Mother Devahuti, she is submitting herself at the lotus feet of Lord Kapila Dev. And she is accepting Lord Kapila Dev as a guru. And then we sing in the last couple of verses, in the beginning, before Lord Kapila Dev starts speaking, Bhagavatam explains that Lord Kapila Dev, he is very pleased to hear of these questions put forward by Mother Devahuti. Srila Prabhupada, he explains in the very first chapter of Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, in many purports. If we study the purports of that first chapter of Bhagavatam, we'll see Prabhupada again and again, he mentions that if we want to gain transcendental knowledge, if we want transcendental knowledge to enter into our heart, then we need to develop or acquire one quality. What is that quality? That quality, Prabhupada says, is submissiveness. Unless we cultivate this quality of submissiveness, Prabhupada explains, transcendental knowledge won't go into our heart. So if we look at the purports in that first chapter of Canto 1, you will see Prabhupada again and again will use these two terms, submissive hearing. Again and again, purport after purport, Prabhupada will mention this point. One needs to submissively hear from the Shastra. One needs to submissively hear from the Guru. One needs to submissively hear from the sadhus. So this, Prabhupada explains, is the qualification for transcendental knowledge or Divya Gyan to enter into our hearts. Unless we have that attitude or that divine quality of submissiveness, submissively hearing, then Prabhupada explains, externally we might be sitting in class or externally we might be reading the books, but unless we are submissively hearing, unless we are submissively reading the Shastras, the wisdom, the transcendental knowledge won't enter into our heart. How so? Because Prabhupada explains we're not in control of our perception. Our perception and how much knowledge we can take in, how much we can remember, how much that stays into our memory, how much knowledge we can apply in our lives, that's not simply based on our own endeavor, but it's based on the Shakti or the blessings that comes from the Super Soul or the Paramatma within our hearts. So unless the Paramatma or Super Soul sanctions, we won't be able to fully realize the imports of the Shastras. We won't be able to fully realize what the sadhus are saying. So the Paramatma, when he notices that we are submissively hearing what the sadhus are saying, we're submissively hearing our spiritual masters and we're submissively reading the Shastras, then the Paramatma, he allows us to get realization of what we're hearing. And the Paramatma allows us to attain Divya Gyan, attain transcendental knowledge. So this is how Prabhupada explains that we can cultivate spiritual knowledge or spiritual wisdom. We need to have this quality of submissiveness. And if we study the whole Bhagavatam, there are so many stories or conversation. The whole Bhagavatam is just different conversations between different devotees. And in these conversations which are put forward in Bhagavatam, there will be one speaker and there will be another devotee who will be asking the questions. And in all the cases, we'll see that the person who's asking the questions, he'll always ask the questions in a very humble, submissive mood. And that is what qualifies these devotees to attain that spiritual wisdom, attain that transcendental knowledge. And just like in Bhagavad Gita, we see Arjuna having that same humble attitude. Arjuna in a very humble, submissive mood, he's coming and surrendering unto Krishna. Karpanya doso bhatam sabha. That, overcome by weakness of heart, I don't know what's right, I don't know what's wrong. I'm surrendering myself unto you. You please instruct me what I should do. Whatever you say, I will do. Same way we're seeing in this chapter, Mother Devahuti, she's approaching Lord Kapila Dev in a similar mood. She's coming and putting forward her pitiful condition at the lotus feet of Lord Kapila Dev. Generally, when we introduce ourselves to someone else, we talk about our glories or our qualifications. I am so and so, I was born here, I'm an engineer, I'm an accountant, I have this job, that job. When we go for interviews, job interviews, we brag about ourselves, These are my glories, this is what I've done, I've worked here, I've worked there, I have this skill, I have that skill, I will be able to do this for your company, I'll be able to do that. So general mood, when we introduce ourselves to others, we talk about our glories, we talk about our skills. But this is not how Mother Devahuti, she starts speaking to Lord Kapila Dev. It is said that in front of the Guru or the spiritual master, one should consider himself as a fool. One should go with a clean slate. One should always think that actually I don't know anything about devotional service, I am a fool, I am a rascal, and whatever my spiritual master says, that is right. With that mood, Prabhupada explains one should go in front of his spiritual master, not with the mood that, okay, I have some understanding, I have studied, the books well enough, I have a lot of understanding of Shastra, and I know something. So with that pride in learning, one can't approach the Guru. And Prabhupada explains that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he displays this himself. So it's said by, the In Chaitanya Charitamrita it's explained, Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, Siksastakam Purusha Prana, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shariradari, Kripam Buddhir Yastam Aham Prapadya. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Lord Krishna himself, but he comes in the mood of his own devotee. He comes to teach us how a devotee should act. And this Prabhupada explains is the meaning of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada says Chaitanya means the pure soul or the liberated soul, and Charita means behavior or action, and Amrita means nectar. So Prabhupada says Chaitanya Charitamrita literally means the behavior of the pure or liberated soul. The transcendental ecstatic behavior, nectarian behavior of the pure soul in the liberated condition. So that is the translation of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So who is showing this by a practical example? How a pure devotee, how a pure liberated soul should behave or act? That is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his practical example in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he is demonstrating how we as devotees should act in pure devotional service. So how a disciple should act, Mahaprabhu also demonstrates this. Mahaprabhu said, Guru Mora Murkha Dekhi, that in front of my spiritual master, I just considered myself a fool, that I don't know anything. And my spiritual master, he instructed me, just chant Hare Krishna. My spiritual master instructed me, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. My spiritual master instructed me that in this age of Kali, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way than to chant the holy name of Krishna. So that's why I am chanting Hare Krishna like a madman. I am a fool, I don't know anything. My spiritual master told me chant Hare Krishna, therefore I am chanting Hare Krishna. So this was the mood in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also approached his guru or spiritual master Ishwara Puri. So in that same humble mood, Prabhupada explains, we should approach our spiritual teachers. We should never think that we know more than our spiritual masters. But the way we approach our guru, Prabhupada explains, is a disciple in front of his guru, he should consider himself a fool. He should consider that I don't know anything. If in that humble mood we approach a guru, then what he is saying will enter into our hearts. Otherwise, if we think we know a lot, about bhakti, about shastra, then while the guru is instructing us or talking from the shastras, we won't let those instructions go in. It will come in and it'll just get deflected to the side. Because we'll think, I already know this, I already know this, I have better understanding of this. So because we think we have that little pride in our understanding of the shastras, then when the wisdom is coming from a guru, we won't let it sink deep into our heart. Because we think we know better or we think we know something. Instead of going deep within our heart, we'll just deflect it this way, that way. I have heard this point before. I've heard this point many times. So like this, the wisdom which is coming will just get deflected here and there. But if we go in front of the guru thinking that I don't know anything, you please tell me what is best for me, then because we're going with a clean slate, whatever he's saying will go deep within our hearts and will cause heart transformation. So we see that same mood here in this chapter with Mother Devahuti. In the very first verse, where she is talking to Lord Kapiladev, she is submitting herself, saying that, I am sick of being a slave of my senses. Prabhupada explains, there is a Goswami and there is Godas. Goswami is one who is fully in control of his senses and mind. And Godas is someone who is a slave or a servant of his senses. So Go means the senses. Godas means one who is the servant of his senses. And Goswami means, Swami means master. So Goswami means one who is the master of the senses. So Mother Devahuti, the way she introduces herself in front of her guru, Lord Kapiladev, is, I am a Godas. I am a slave of my senses. For so many years, so many lifetimes, I have been helplessly serving my senses and my mind. And I'm sick of this. I'm sick of being a slave of my senses. I need help. You please instruct me how I can get out of the clutches of the illusory energy. How I can stop being a slave of my mind and senses. Like this, in a very humble attitude, Mother Devahuti is presenting herself at the lotus feet of Lord Kapiladev. Then she tells Lord Kapildev that you are my transcendental I. So through this Mother Devotee, she demonstrates that for a disciple, he sees the world, or he sees everything around him, through the eyes of his spiritual master. What does it mean? Seeing through the eyes of the Guru, it means we perceive and we see things around us through what our Guru or through what our teachers have taught us. We don't perceive things just through, our mundane vision, but, just like we have the term Shastra Chakshu, which means to see through the eyes of the Shastra. We have to train ourselves to see through the eyes of the Shastra. Just like, a question that often comes up regarding book distribution that, okay, we're going out to distribute books to help people in their lives, to help people who are suffering in mature existence. But when we go out to distribute books, we see that everyone, so many people on the streets, they look very happy. They look like they're having a good time. So how should we understand this? So the common answer given by devotees is always that we should try and see through the eyes of the Shastra. Instead of seeing externally that they look very happy and they're having a good time in mature life, instead, we should see through what the Shastras are saying. According to what the Shastras are saying, the Shastras say that if someone is not a devotee of Krishna, if someone is not in touch with Krishna, then they cannot be happy. Because by constitution, Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishna Nichadas. By constitution, the Jiva, the living entity, he is a servant of Krishna. So if we are separated from Krishna, he'll be always in distress, he'll always be suffering. So through that spiritual vision, or through that wisdom we've gained through the Shastras, we should see the world. Although externally they look happy, but according to Shastra, actually they're not happy. That so-called happiness, which Maya is showing me, is just an illusion. Actually they're suffering. And they're having a lot of problems in their lives, and I need to go give them a book and help them. So this is called Shastra Chaksu. We're not just trusting our material senses, but we're trying to see through what the Shastras are saying. In the same way, Mother Devahuti is saying that, my dear Lord Kapaladev, I am blind, I don't know what's good for me. You are my transcendental eye, which means for a disciple, he sees through the instructions of his spiritual master. Just like we have Shastra Chakshu, same way we have, Guru Chakshu or Guru Vani Chakshu, seeing through the Vani or seeing through the instructions of the spiritual master. So like this Mother Devahuti, she's displaying the ideal characteristics of her disciple. And although, she's acting so humble, although she has so many reasons to be proud, she's coming from such a great exalted background. Her father is Swayambhu Manu, who is the emperor, of the whole Bhumandala. So Swayambhu Manu, he's a Manu, he's in charge of maintaining, or he's like the emperor for a whole Manvantara, which is like 71 or 72 Divya Yugas. So in one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. And Swayambhu Manu, he's the first Manu in the day of Brahma. And his daughter is Devahuti. So she's coming from such great background that her father is Swayambhu Manu himself. And Swayambhu Manu is also one of the 12 Mahajans, the 12 authorities in bhakti. So the daughter of a Mahajan, you would expect her to be quite knowledgeable in bhakti. You would expect her to be also a great devotee of Krishna. So as she was growing up, definitely, she would have heard so much from her father about bhakti, about Krishna, about devotional service. But still, how is she presenting herself? I am a fool, I am a godas, I am a servant of my senses, I don't know anything, I have wasted my life. Like that she's presenting herself. So on one side, her father is Swayambhu Manu, one of the Mahajans. On the other side, her husband is another pure devotee of the Lord, Kardama Muni. And then she has a son, Kapiladev, who is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from all angles, she's coming from such great exalted background. She has every reason to be, proud of herself. But despite all of these qualifications, she's presenting herself in a very humble, submissive attitude. And because of this humble, submissive attitude of Mother Devahuti, Bhagavatam explains that when Lord Kapaladev, he hears these words of submission, he hears these questions by Mother Devotee, Lord Kapila, he is very pleased at heart to see the ideal mood of Mother Devahuti. So now, being pleased with Mother Devahuti, Lord Kapila has begun instructing Mother Devahuti. So in yesterday's verse, Lord Kapila is saying, when one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. So in these couple of verses we're reading now, Lord Kapila is giving the symptoms of someone who is a liberated soul, the symptoms of a jiva who is liberated. So in the liberated condition, one is, Lord Kapila yesterday is explaining, one is freed from greed, he's freed from lust and all of these anarthas. And because he's freed from this, he comes to a transcendental stage where he transcends material happiness and material distress. And in today's verse, Lord Kapila says, at that stage, in the liberated condition, the jiva, he is able to perceive himself as transcendental to material existence. He is able to see himself in relationship with the Supreme Soul, that he is very, very small and Krishna is very great. And then he humbly submits himself as a servant of Krishna. So, regarding yesterday's verse, I was just remembering something. Like Lord Kapila is saying how in the liberated condition, one is freed from greed, one is freed from lust, and all these anarthas. And reading one pastime where one devotee or one new person, like a bhakta, he comes to Srila Prabhupada and he starts sharing, his appreciation of Krishna consciousness, and he starts offering his gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. And he tells Srila Prabhupada that Srila Prabhupada, thank you for giving us bhakti, thank you for giving us these books, thank you for giving us devotional service. This process of bhakti really works, Before I used to be so angry, I used to always get overcome by anger. But now that I'm starting to practice Krishna consciousness, I am seeing that my anger is slowly going away. And I'm seeing that I'm slowly starting to overcome anger and get less and less angry. So like this, he is telling Srila Prabhupada. And he is expecting that Srila Prabhupada would say, oh, very good that you're able to overcome anger. But actually, Srila Prabhupada, he says the complete opposite. So this devotee is saying that, thank you for giving us bhakti. Because of bhakti, I'm able to overcome anger. I'm not getting angry so much anymore. What was Prabhupada's response? Prabhupada said, anger? What's wrong with anger? What's wrong with getting angry? Anger is not a bad thing, like this Prabhupada tells this person. And this new bhakta is completely shocked. Anger is not a bad thing? Prabhupada is saying, what's wrong with anger? What does Prabhupada mean? So he asked Prabhupada again, and then Prabhupada explains. Prabhupada says, yes, anger is not a bad thing. Anger can also be utilized in Krishna's service. And Prabhupada gives the example of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says, the whole reason Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita was to make Arjuna angry. Because unless Arjuna is angry, how can he fight? To go and fight and shoot arrows and kill thousands and thousands of soldiers, one needs to have a certain level of anger. One can't be just a peaceful sadhu and then shoot arrows and kill people. So to go and fight in this, terrible war and kill thousands and thousands of soldiers, one needs to be angry to do that particular devotional service. So it was Krishna's desire that Arjuna do this service of fighting and killing all the demoniac soldiers on the other side. And to do that particular service properly, Arjuna had to become angry. And to make Arjuna angry, Prabhupada says, Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada says, the whole reason Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita was to make Arjuna angry. So Prabhupada says, this is an example of a situation where a devotee is using anger in pure devotional service. So anger can also be used in Krishna's service. That doesn't mean, that we get angry, we have a fight with another devotee, we get angry and then, we justify that, this is spiritual anger, Prabhu, The other Prabhu will say, hey, Prabhu, don't get so angry, don't get so irritated. And say, hey, Prabhu, this is spiritual anger, It's for anger for Krishna's pleasure, you're not seeing properly. So we have to be a little careful. But Prabhupada explains that yes, anger can also be utilized in pure devotional service. So when instances where anger can be used, Prabhupada explains, when another devotee of the Lord, he's being blasphemed or he's being attacked, at that time, one can get angry and defend that particular devotee. So when other devotees or when Krishna himself, when they're being blasphemed and attacked by others, at that time, one can demonstrate anger to defend a devotee of the Lord or to defend Krishna himself. And we'll see Srila Prabhupada so many times also demonstrating transcendent anger. Like one time, Srila Prabhupada, he was invited, this was in Japan, in Tokyo. There's one Indian gentleman in Tokyo, he invited Prabhupada for a house program. And not only was Prabhupada invited, but another Mayavadi sannyasi, he was also invited to this program. So it's like this particular Indian person, he was just like, let me just have some sadhus in my house, so I'll invite this particular sadhu who is, Mayavadi, and Prabhupada also I'll invite. So he invited Srila Prabhupada and a Mayavadi sannyasi. So his plan was, okay, I'll get the Mayavadi sannyasi to talk for some time, then Prabhupada can talk for some time. Like that, we'll hear a bit of both. So first the Mayavadi sannyasi, he starts talking. And he starts, blaspheming Krishna. Krishna has no form, Supreme Brahman, it's all one. Krishna has no hands, Krishna has no legs, he can't talk, he was talking all of this nonsense. And Prabhupada's tolerating. At one stage, Prabhupada, he couldn't handle it anymore, and then he told all the devotees to start kirtan. So while this Mayavadi sannyasi is sitting on the Vyasasana, giving his lecture in the house program, Prabhupada tells all of his devotees to start kirtan. This Mayavadi is speaking, and then suddenly all the devotees start banging the kartals and banging the mridangas and start a big kirtan. And this Mayavadi's class is over. And this Mayavadi sannyasi, naturally, he's feeling offended, he's getting angry. And the host of that house program, he's also upset, like, what is this? This is not proper. But Prabhupada, this is transcendent to anger, because Prabhupada, he can't tolerate, hearing this blasphemy of his dear Krishna. So when a devotee, he displays anger, it is in relation to defending Krishna, when Krishna is being blasphemed, or when Krishna's pure devotees are being blasphemed. And this anger is done out of pure love. So if we really love someone, then naturally when someone criticizes them, naturally we will feel offended and we will try and defend them. So in the same way, pure devotees, they display anger when Krishna is being blasphemed or Krishna's pure devotees are being blasphemed. Just like if someone says, to us, like say, we all love our mother or father very much. So someone comes up to us and says, that your mother, she's armless. She doesn't have any arms. Your mother, she has no legs. Your mother, she can't speak. Your mother has no eyes. She's blind. That's very offensive. We'll try and defend, challenge that person. So in the same way, pure devotees, they feel like that. When these Mayavadis, they say, the Supreme Lord has no form. He can't walk. He can't talk. He can't do this. He can't do that. When they say he's impersonal, he's just a big blob. He's just light. So pure devotees, they feel very offended at that. And out of pure transcendental love, they display anger. So in this way, Prabhupada explains that there is nothing wrong with anger. Anger can also be used in Krishna's service. And the whole reason Krishna spoke Gita was to make Arjuna angry, to fight the battle. So in the same way, these other qualities like lust and greed, Prabhupada also explains, there's nothing wrong with this also. Just like there's nothing wrong with anger, anger can be spiritualized. In the same way, greed can be spiritualized. In the same way, lust can also be spiritualized. How Prabhupada quotes Narottam Das Thakur by saying that we can spiritualize lust by, instead of always thinking, how can I please my eyes, instead of always thinking, how can I please my tongue, instead of always thinking, how can I please my ears, so on and so forth, we should start thinking, or we should start lusting or hankering after pleasing Krishna's senses. How can I please Krishna's eyes? How can I please Krishna's sense of touch? How can I please Krishna's taste buds? So on and so forth. So A conditioned soul, he'll always be lusting after seeing something very nice to bring pleasure to his eyes. Or a conditioned soul will be lusting after different variety of foodstuffs to satisfy his tongue. But Prabhupada says, instead of having that strong lusty desires to satisfy one's own senses, one can dovetail or channel that same strong hankering for satisfying Krishna's senses. Let me dance very nicely, so Krishna will get nice pleasure today in the kirtan. So when we dance very nicely in front of Radha Gopinath, that's very pleasing to Krishna's eyes. When you cook a very nice, tasty, opulent offering, bhoga offering for Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, that is us pleasing Krishna's tongue. That is us pleasing Krishna's taste buds. So instead of lusting after eating something nice for ourselves, we lust to cook something nice to bring pleasure to Krishna's tongue. In the same way, let me sing very nicely today in the kirtan, very loudly, so Krishna's ears are satisfied. So Krishna's ears get pleasure. So in this way, a devotee of the Lord, Prabhupada says, instead of always lusting after bringing pleasure to his own senses, a devotee is always very, very lusty to satisfy Krishna's senses. So he sings very loudly and nicely to bring pleasure to Krishna's ears. He dances nicely to bring pleasure to Krishna's eyes. He dresses himself nicely with tilak, dhoti, kurta, or sari, devotional clothing. So Krishna is very pleased when Krishna sees him. And he cooks nice offerings for Krishna, so Krishna's taste is also satisfied, so on and so forth. So this is how lust can be dovetailed in Krishna's service. And then we have greed. Prabhupada says there's nothing wrong with greed. We can also be greedy in Krishna's service. We can overcome material greed by being spiritually greedy. What is spiritual greed? Just like lust, like we lusting after satisfying Krishna's senses, in the same way we can be greedy to expand the opulences of Krishna. Material greed is, we're greedy to expand our own opulences. We're greedy to get more and more material possessions, more and more material opulences. Spiritual greed means we're being greedy to expand Krishna's opulences. We're being greedy to expand the possessions or the opulences of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Just like Nityananda Prabhu. He is very greedy, spiritually greedy. Just like we have the example of Jagai in Madai. So Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur, they used to daily go out on Harinam Sankirtan. Prabhupada explains that Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, they're the first door-to-door book distributors. They used to go door-to-door and preach about Krishna and get the fallen conditioned souls in Bengal to become devotees. So they were going door-to-door, transforming so many fallen conditioned souls to the path of bhakti. In this way, they were able to make hundreds and thousands of devotees all over Bengal. But one day, they see Jagai in Madai, so fallen, so intoxicated, so degraded. And they've never seen, anyone so fallen and so degraded. And what does Nityananda Prabhu think? Immediately, Nityananda Prabhu, he becomes spiritually very greedy. Although, in terms of his, outreach results, he's already made hundreds and thousands of devotees. Still, he's not satisfied. He wants to make more devotees for Krishna. And Nityananda Prabhu, in spiritual greed, he's thinking that this Jagai and Madai, they're so fallen, they're so degraded. I have never seen anyone as degraded as them. If we can make these two into devotees, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's fame will expand even more. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will become even more famous. Everyone will speak, that, this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's so great. By his mercy, even these two most fallen, degraded people, Jagai and Madai, even they become devotees. How great must Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be. So like this, my dear Lord's fame will expand even more and more and more, if we can make these two fallen souls into devotees. So like this, Nityananda Prabhu is displaying spiritual greed as a preacher. So as, outreach workers in Krishna consciousness, we should never be satisfied thinking, I have made this many devotees, I have distributed that many books, I have distributed that many plates of prasad, I have been on this many harinams. But no, we should always want to do more and more service. We should always want to reach out to more and more souls. Just like Nityananda Prabhu, he's not satisfied. He's always wanting to preach more and more and make more and more people into devotees. So this is spiritual greed. So in the same way, we should always cultivate this spiritual greed. We should never be satisfied with the amount of devotional service we've done, and we should always hanker or be greedy to do more and more service for Krishna. We should always be greedy to expand Krishna's glories more and more. We should always be greedy to expand Shri Radha Gopinath's opulences. So in this way, Prabhupada explains that this is the way we can overcome these anathas. We can overcome material anger by cultivating spiritual anger. We can overcome material lust by cultivating spiritual lust. We can overcome material greed by cultivating spiritual greed. And Prabhupada says we can overcome material fear also. How do we overcome fear? Prabhupada says we overcome fear by being afraid of Maya. By being afraid of the illusory energy, we can overcome all material fears. So Prabhupada says, if we're afraid of the illusory energy, if we're afraid of the power of Maya, that is actually healthy fear. That is actually spiritual fear. That is actually good for our bhakti. One time, Srila Prabhupada was taking darshan of Radha Krishna deities, and one particular disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he had the guts to go up to Prabhupada and ask Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I saw you praying to, Radha Krishna today. What did you pray to Krishna for? Or what did you pray to the deities today? And then Prabhupada looked to the disciple and Prabhupada revealed, today I was praying to Srimati Radharani to please protect me from Maya. So although Prabhupada is an eternally liberated soul, he can never fall down. He has descended from the spiritual world. For teaching us by his example, Prabhupada is saying that he prayed to Srimati Radharani to please protect me from Maya, to please protect me from the illusory energy. So this is one prayer we can offer to Srimati Radharani every day. That, my dear Srimati Radharani, you please protect me from the illusory energy. Maya is very powerful. I am just a new devotee. I'm very weak. Maya, so many times during the day she attacks me. I need your strength. I need your blessings. My dear Srimati Radharani, please protect me from the illusory energy so I can stay chaste to your dear Gopinath. So this is a bona fide prayer which our Srila Prabhupada himself offered to Srimati Radharani. So this is something we can offer to Srimati Radharani, because Maya or Durga Devi, she is an expansion from Srimati Radharani. Only from Srimati Radharani, Lakshmi Devi comes, and from Srimati Radharani, Durga Devi. These are all expansions from Srimati Radharani. So if we pray to Srimati Radharani, she can protect us from Durga Devi or Maya. And in today's purport, Prabhupada is elaborating about, so today's verse and purport is more on the topic of Jiva Tattva, about the position of the Jiva, how the Jiva is very, very minute and small. The Jiva is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord or the Super Soul. But in terms of quantity, the Supreme Lord is, unlimited, and we're very, very small or minute. And Prabhupada, he gives the example of the sun. The sun is like unlimited. The sun has unlimited energy, unlimited heat and radiation the sun can give. And then there is the small sun particles or the molecules of sun rays. So just like the sun gives heat and light, in the same way these small particles of the sun rays, they also give heat and light, but there is a difference. The sun is unlimited, and these small sun molecules, or the sun rays, they are very, very small. So they are only able to give small, tiny, infinitesimal amount of heat and light. So that is the difference, Prabhupada explains, that we're equal in quality with Krishna, we're spiritual by nature, but in terms of quantity, there's so much difference. Krishna is unlimited and we're very small and tiny. And because we're very, very small and tiny, we have the tendency to get covered over by illusion. Just like the small rays of the sun, they can get covered over by the clouds. But the actual huge sun itself, it can never get covered over by the clouds. The clouds are very, very small and tiny in comparison to the huge sun. But the clouds can cover some small, minute amounts of sun rays which are coming from the sun. In the same way, Prabhupada explains that because we're very small and tiny, we can get covered over by Krishna's illusory energy. But because Krishna is so great, and because Maya or Durga Devi is Krishna's energy, Krishna can never get covered over by Maya or Durga Devi. Durga Devi or Maya is always under Krishna. Maya dakshina prakriti suyate sa characharam. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, that this divine energy of mine is working under my direction. So Maya is like one of Krishna's servants. So in this way, Prabhupada is explaining in today's purport. And then Prabhupada is also talking about the Mayavadis. Prabhupada is saying, Mayavadi philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy is, however, unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the jiva, is eternally a part. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exists. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun rays also exist. So in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about the actual jiva tattva and also talking about Mayavad philosophy. How do I twist things to present improper understanding? So Mayavadis, they say that, we're all one, we're all God. Initially, we're all, merged into Brahman. And then we got fragmented. We got cut off for a certain period of time. And now here we are in the conditioned state. And after we get liberated, after we attain self-realization, we will go and merge back into Brahman. We will all become God again. So this is the Mayavad philosophy. But Prabhupada is saying no. According to Shastra, Mamai Vamsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manasastani Indrani, Prakritistani Karshate. So according to Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is saying that the jivas, they're explained to be eternally parts and parcels of Krishna. So it's not that at some point in time we were merged with Krishna and then we came out, we're having time here in mature existence, then after liberation we'll go and again merge with Krishna. No, Prabhupada says, according to Bhagavad Gita, according to Shastra, it said, we're eternally fragmented parts and parcels of Krishna. So we're eternally separate parts of Krishna, which means in the past we were separate from Krishna, now we're separate from Krishna, in the future also we'll be separate from Krishna. There will never come a time when we'll merge into Krishna and lose our individuality. We were individuals in the past, we're individuals now, and in the future also we'll continue to be individuals. So then how do we explain impersonal liberation? Because when one gets impersonal liberation, it's mentioned that one merges into Brahman, right? So in that stage, does one lose his individuality? Prabhupada says no. Even in that stage, one still has this individuality. So even when someone gets impersonal liberation and merges into Brahman, he still maintains his individuality. Prabhupada, he gives the example of the green parrot entering the green tree. So you have a green tree, with full of green leaves. Then you have a parrot, which is fully green in color. So the parrot goes and enters into the green tree and sits on the tree. So externally it seems that the parrot has merged into the tree. You can't see the parrot because the parrot is blending in with the leaves of the green tree. So externally it looks, superficially on an external level, it looks like the parrot has merged into the green tree. But is the parrot actually merged into a green tree? No, the parrot still is an individual parrot in the green tree. After some time, half an hour or so, after the parrot is bored of the tree, the parrot will fly away. And you'll see the parrot leaving the green tree and going somewhere else. So in the same way, Prabhupada says, when these Mayavadis, they go and merge into the impersonal Brahman, they merge into the Brahman, but they still maintain their individuality. And just like the parrot, after some time it gets bored, it leaves that tree and goes to another tree. In the same way, Prabhupada explains that these Mayavadis, these persons or these yogis who merge into impersonal Brahman, after some time, they get bored. Because you're just there in impersonal Brahman, there's no activity, no engagement, you're just there, there's nothing to do. And the nature of the spirit, the nature of the soul is to be active, to always do something. And because there's no activity in the Brahman, the spirit soul becomes bored, and then he falls back down into mature existence again. So that's why our acharyas explain that impersonal liberation is not actually liberation. They don't count Sayuja Mukti as actual liberation. Because only temporarily these Mayavadis, they merge into impersonal Brahman. After some time they get bored, hundreds and thousands of years they get bored, and then again they fall back down. Because there's no activity, there's no engagement. So the nature of the soul is, Satchid Ananda. So Sach means eternal, Chid means full of knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss. So this is our constitutional nature. So when we're in impersonal liberation, when we merge into Brahman, the eternity aspect is ticked, the knowledge aspect is ticked, but there is no Ananda. To get Ananda, to get spiritual happiness or bliss, one needs to engage in devotional service. And because there is no devotional service in Brahman, these yogis, these Brahmavadis, these Mayavadis, they get bored after some time. There's no Ananda. There is eternity, there is full of knowledge. So Sach and Chit aspect is ticked, but there is no Ananda. Because unless you engage in spiritual activity, how will you get Ananda? So they get bored, and because there's no Ananda, they fall back down. So this is what Prabhupada is explaining today regarding Jiva Tattva in today's purport. And we'll stop with one story from Krishna book. So in Krishna book, we know Krishna, he comes across many, many demons that he kills in Vrindavan. And according to Acharyas, it is said that different demons, they represent different demoniac qualities. That, when we read these stories, we can overcome. Just like Putana, the first demon Krishna kills, she represents false guru. And when we read these pastimes, Prabhupada explains, we can overcome these anarthas. So after Putana, there was Sakatasura. Sakatasura, Acharya explains, he represents, so Sakatasura is the cart demon. So if you remember, there was this cart under whom Mother Yasoda placed Krishna under, and that cart demon, its plan was that I will, squish Krishna. So the cart was holding a lot of different utensils, a lot of different things. So Sakatasura, he represents the heavy burden of bad habits that we carry in our spiritual life. So when we, now we're practicing devotees, but when we start practicing devotional service, we still carry into our spiritual lives many bad habits and anarthas from our previous material life and even from previous lifetimes. So this baggage, material baggage we carry from our past lives, that represents Sakatasura. And when we read that pastime of Sakatasura, how Krishna kills Sakatasura, we can overcome all these bad habits and tendencies we have from our previous lives. Then we have Trinavarta. And Trinavarta, he is related to these Mayavadis or impersonalists or these logicians that we were talking about today. So, just like Trinavarta, he's the whirlwind demon. He's the one that was causing the hurricane or the tornado to happen in Vrindavan. So generally when there is, a lot of wind, the nature is the wind, it helps dry things. Just like if you hang your clothes out to dry, if it's a very windy day, then the clothes will dry very quickly. So by the power of wind has this quality that through wind, things can dry very quickly. So that's why Trinavarta, because he's the whirlwind demon, he represents the dry logicians, he represents, the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, who are always speaking dry philosophy and who are always mentally speculating from the Shastras. Instead of taking the Shastra as it is, they're always speculating. It could be like this, it could be like that. So they're always, just like the whirlwind is always going in circle, the tornado is always going round and round and round. So in the same way, the Acharyas explain, these Mayavadis, these impersonalists, these dry logicians, they always go in circles by mental speculation. It could be like this, it could be this, it could be that. Instead of just taking the philosophy as it is from Krishna, they always speculate. So just like the whirlwind is going round and round, in the same way these Mayavadis impersonalists, they're going round and round in their mental speculation, in the study of the Shastras. So Trinavarta, he represents this demoniac quality of dry speculation, dry philosophy, Mayavad philosophy, impersonalist philosophy, mental speculation, interpreting the Shastras in different ways. So all of these anarthas, they're represented by Trinavarta. And when we hear the pastime of Trinavarta, we can overcome all these tendencies in our hearts. So what is the pastime? It is mentioned in Vrindavan, Mother Yasoda. She used to play with Krishna. And one of the ways she used to play with baby Krishna is that she used to hold Krishna in her hands, and very gently she used to throw Krishna up in the air. And Krishna would fly up in the air and then again come back down. Then Mother Yasoda would catch Krishna. Then again, she'll throw Krishna in the air, then catch Krishna. So in Bhagavatam, this is described as Lalayanti. So this is how Mother Yasoda used to play with Krishna. Very gently throw him in the air, then catch him, throw and catch, like that. And Krishna, he used to love this when Mother Yasoda used to do this. And whenever Mother Yasoda used to throw him and catch him, Krishna used to laugh and smile, and he used to relish this so much. So one day Krishna was thinking that, I'm feeling so much bliss, when Mother Yasoda throws me in the air and catches me, I'll experience even more bliss if I can fly even higher and higher into the sky. If by flying, 1 meter into the sky, I'm getting so much bliss, how much more bliss will I get if I go very, very high up into the sky? So like this, Krishna starts planning to go high up in the sky. But he's thinking that, if I go so high up in the sky, Mother Yasoda, naturally, she'll be very distressed. So I can't do it directly in front of her. So then Krishna, he arranges one day, while Mother Yasoda is holding Krishna, he becomes very, very heavy. Using his yoga power, Krishna becomes very, very heavy. And Mother Yasoda, suddenly she's feeling Krishna to be so heavy like a mountain, and she can't hold Krishna anymore. She's wondering what's happening. And then she puts Krishna down, because Krishna has just suddenly become so heavy. So she puts Krishna down away, and then she goes off to attend to her duties. At this time, this demon Trinavarta comes. So Krishna knows that if while Mother Yasoda has Krishna in her arms, if the demon takes Krishna away, then Mother Yasoda, she will just, completely break down, she'll completely faint, it will be too much for her to bear. So that's why Krishna arranges that first Mother Yasoda puts Krishna down and then goes away, and then the demon can pick him up and take him into the sky.